It doesn't matter what kind of e-commerce brand you're building, you still need a rock-solid way to grow and scale your company like clockwork. Welcome to 7 Figures and Beyond, an e-commerce marketing podcast for D2C brand owners and marketers looking for best practices that include proven strategies and tactics to grow an e-commerce brand to 7 figures and beyond. Bringing 18 plus years of marketing experience as an e-commerce brand owner and e-commerce agency owner, please welcome your host, Greg Shuey.
Hey everyone, welcome to the 7 Figures and Beyond e-commerce marketing podcast. I hope that everyone is crushing it today. Today, my guest, his name is Steven Schneider, and Steven is the co-founder and CEO of Trio SEO. They are a blog writing agency that helps B2B brands drive high-intent organic traffic. Don't be fooled by that B2B. We're talking e-commerce today, but that's who they mostly help. Before Trio SEO, he co-owned a portfolio of 40 blogs, which is pretty impressive, and managed 400 articles monthly, even more impressive. And he scaled that to 7 figures a month via 7 figures total or a month?
Annually. No, not
annually.
That'd
Sorry.
be crazy. I wouldn't be in Seattle. I'd be in Bora Bora if that was the case.
Annually, 7 figures via SEO. No paid ads, no social media, no other strategies. Feels very similar to the way that I've grown a couple of e-commerce brands. Only SEO. And I'm a hardcore SEO guy, so I'm excited to jam with another SEO. Today, Trio SEO creates content that aims to convert browsers into buyers. Their team manages everything from strategy and outlines to writing and uploading. So today we're going to talk about just that, how to build e-commerce content that converts browsers into buyers, because that's absolutely critical. One of the things that, I learned a long time ago, I've been doing SEO for about 20 years now, is that you can rank and drive traffic, but if it's not the right traffic that's actually going to convert, it's no good, right? So once we get traffic to the website, if your potential customers can't find that information they're looking for, and you're not making it easy for them to make a purchase decision, they're not going to stick around, much less buy. So it's going to be a really fun discussion. I'm excited. Steven, thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
Thanks, Greg. Excited to be here. Be fun.
Yeah. So before we jump in, would you just take a couple of minutes? I know I've already talked about it a little bit, but introduce yourself to our listeners and share a little bit about your personal story and how you've gotten to where you are today.
Yeah, of course. So, I'll kind of fill in some of the details from what you discussed.
Cool.
But so I started my SEO journey almost about a decade ago when I was in college, and I was kind of on this like finance MBA fast track, like didn't know what I was going to do with college, didn't know what I was going to do in life, but was going to college, so might as well make use of it, become like a VC investor, sell my soul. 40 years later, retired. Thankfully, that wasn't the case. One of my good friends in college, and just kind of soon to be mentor, told me that he had this business on the side. And I was like, okay, what are you doing? Like, what could you possibly have a business on? Like, you're in college. And yeah, he was building Amazon affiliate blogs back in the kind of Wild West era. Yeah. And he was making like 10, 15K a month doing this in college. And I'm like, okay, screw everything I know about what my plan was. Like, teach me everything you know about what this SEO stuff is, what blogging is, like how to set up websites. I'm a sponge. So, I pretty much did that. I became, this kind of like teach me all person. And he'd like, okay, go read this article. And then I'd come back and he's like, go take this course. And I'd come back. And then he finally just gave me one of his old domains that he didn't even know he had. And he's like, here's your playground. You can't break it. Like, if you think you broke it, nothing bad will happen. Like, do whatever you want. So I kind of use it as my kind of like fuel to kickstart that journey, and figured out what blogging was and how keyword research worked and some of the technical basics and uploading, etc. And then that site started kind of making a couple $100 a month, and kind of figured out what it was worth and what doing was. For those who don't know, like blogging, you can sell a blog for 30 to 40x your average monthly. So, if you can get a site to $1,000 a month steadily, you can sell it for 35 grand, say. So once I knew that, I was like, well, okay, cash flow plus resale value, valuation multiples, like this is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So yeah, long story short, kind of merged with a couple of his sites. He had another partner. Three of us hit the ground running. He and I graduated around the same time, and took us about 2 or 3 years to get to 40 websites. And at our peak, we were doing about 400 articles a month, and we scaled that to 7 figures. So it was pretty
That's
fun.
amazing.
That's kind of the down and dirty of how I got into it all.
Nice. That's cool. I love it. It feels very kind of similar to my story. I started in affiliate marketing, and while I was going to school for marketing, I started to learn. I met a number of publishers who were just crushing it, and I'm like, what on earth is going on? This doesn't make sense. This isn't what I'm being taught in my courses. And, within a couple of months, I had like 15 affiliate sites, and I was driving traffic because it was easy to rank back then. You just stick keywords and
it's just a numbers game.
You buy
how many articles
directory links,
publish.
Boom, you were ranking and driving revenue. I kind of wish we could go back to those times,
It was crazy. It was literally, how quickly can I create content, publish it, and wait 30 days?
Yeah. So funny. So fun. That was a fun time.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Thank you for sharing that journey. It's one of my favorite parts of the podcast, just kind of hear people's stories and where they're coming from. And it's amazing. So are you ready to jump in?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. So when people are just kind of getting started with content, and I think this maybe, applies to any kind of business, not specifically e-commerce in general. What are some of those foundational principles that they need to keep in mind when they're mapping out their content plan, when they're creating content aimed at really not only just pulling traffic, but getting them to take action and converting them into a lead or into a buyer of some sort?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is just like study your customer inside and out. I think that people are so tied up in what has the sexiest metrics for a keyword, like what's the highest volume and the lowest difficulty, and how do we write an article on it?
Yeah.
But if that's a top of funnel article, cool, good luck. Now you have all this traffic and you can't do anything with it. So, I preach search intent and making sure that you're actually going after keywords that matter, going after bottom of funnel first. That's what we do. And kind of work a reverse funnel strategy is kind of how we've always thought about it. So
that's awesome.
That's number one.
We do a lot of customer research here, and I think that's really, opened our clients' eyes into the possibilities of being able to market a brand, not just in content alone, right? And we do a lot of research. We talk to a lot of customers. And one of my favorite things to do there also is to run post-purchase surveys. And as part of that post-purchase survey, have nested responses to where when they say that they found you through a search engine, you ask, what did you search for? And that is a fantastic way to start gathering that intel of what are the actual queries that people are buying from. And then you can take that and kind of gear your content around. And I think that's such a great foundational principle that you lead out with.
That's a hack if I've ever heard one.
Yeah.
straight from the tap.
Are there any others outside of just knowing your customer?
I think the biggest thing too is like we're obviously an agency, but we always like to say, for meeting number one, we're SEO nerds at heart, but your business better than we know your business. So aside from knowing the customer and doing all that sort of stuff, I think there just has to be more communication internally. Like if there's a founder, they probably know way more about that business than any other person on that team. So get questions answered by them, ask them surveys, get as much information out of them as possible, and then go to the next in line. There has to be top, 3 to 5 people in that company who know that business inside and out. They know the customers inside and out. They know the pain point, and they're a gold mine of information. So, if you're not tapping into that stakeholder circle, that's low hanging fruit right there. And you kind of use that to create your arsenal of strategy or topics or CTAs. Like what kind of verbiage are you using? What should writers be thinking about? How is the messaging coming across? What kind of imagery are we using? The list goes on and on, but at the very least, they're the expert, they're the SMEs. Talk to them before you talk to anyone else.
Who are those people in general? For us, it's like founder. It's head of sales wouldn't be relevant for us, but for a B2B, it would be relevant. Like people who oversee customer service. Is there anyone else internally?
CMOs for sure.
CMOs.
I mean, they are. I mean, they pretty much have all the information that I need to succeed. That's kind of like where funny enough, we've changed our ICP from founders to CMOs because they know your psychoanalytics, they know your demographics, they know everything under the sun around that customer. I mean, they should ideally if they do their job well, but it just alleviates a lot of that headache from day one of me having to do extra research and me having to do all this sort of stuff. They're like, hey, do you guys have a brand brief? Do you guys have like an ICP map? Do you guys have a persona? Like everything. And they're like, yep, here you go. And I'm like, sweet, you just saved me 20 hours of research. Thank you.
That's awesome.
So, I mean, yeah, it also depends on the size. It's like, the e-commerce is so diverse, and like you get people who are solopreneurs, you get solopreneurs plus VA teams, and then you have, fully fledged teams. So you have C-suites, you have a whole variety of people. So I think it really depends on the size of this e-commerce company, where they are in their journey, whether it's, year 1 versus year 10, and just how invested they are in that entire process, because that's definitely going to shape content too.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. So after you've talked to these folks, after you have a really strong understanding of who the customer is, what makes them tick, how they use the search engines to research, like what are some of the most important content formats that are the most effective in really moving people along that buyer journey? What are you seeing in 2024?
Long form, 20,000 words an article, just as much content. No, I'm just kidding. I think that my top favorites right now are always going to be verses. Like people are always trying to figure out new ways to slice bread, but like don't reinvent the wheel. Versus crush. Verses with good CTAs and good tables and like things that make content skimmable. That matters a lot. I would say like if you have an article that's paragraph 1, item 1, paragraph 2, item 2, like no, throw in a table, give me some bullet points, like put yourself in that perspective. The other things I would say are competitor alternatives. These ones are somewhat more touchy to get brands to get on board with, but those who are willing to talk about their competitors on their blog, like, hey, your competitors are going to do it regardless. You might as well get that real estate, whether it's XYZ alternatives or brands like XYZ, or even like your own brand name. Like if you don't have that, like that's low hanging fruit too. And then talking about that, or like even like best product roundups. Like I would say, like if I own an e-commerce company, I would have every best article. I would buy the products and do them like legit. I wouldn't try to do old school affiliate style, but like you don't have to link to competitors, but you can at least try to claim that real estate and do an in-depth review. And like, I think that now with how content is shifting, the transparency that a brand can offer and saying like, hey, we actually bought 3 of our competitors' products and we wanted to test them out. And like, guess what? Some of these attributes are actually better than our product. And like, that's fine. Like, we're not this golden product. Like, we don't have all the answers, but like, here's where we think that we outshine the competitors and here's where they maybe beat us. But like, you're the customer at the end of the day and you can make that decision. But I think leveling that transparency and giving the information to them and letting them decide, like that's pretty powerful stuff. So
it's way powerful.
I think people just need to get over the fact it's like, well, what if we lose a sale? It's like, well, you won't even get a sale if you're not ranking for it. So like, take your pick.
Take your swing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's wild. Are you seeing that like written content, video content, a blend of the two, imagery? Like what's really crushing right now?
Blend of the two is always going to have, without a doubt, perform better. We actually have a client right now, very interesting strategy. They're not in e-commerce, but I think the strategy still applies. They came to us and they had a backwards approach. So they took all their FAQs from clients and they converted them into YouTube videos, just like founder in front of camera, decent production, answered question, and then reverse engineered it into a blog. So they didn't really have any blog strategy, but they were ranking for all of these great keywords and they had no idea. And they're like, well, we know that we have traffic, but like there's no strategy there. And I was like, oh no, there's definitely a strategy here. Like you guys just don't know it yet. Because I was telling them, I was like, well, you have the hard part figured out. You have the video dialed in. So
Yep.
let's just create blog topics that work, and then you guys can do that your thing. We'll meet in the middle, and now you have a powerhouse of a strategy that tackles video. People like going in that video if they don't want to read the article. Who does? It also helps build your YouTube. Like it's a flywheel. So for that reason, I mean, take it one step further. You go to social, posted newsletters. I mean, the list goes on and on. But I'm always going to be biased toward content only. I think just because of the topical authority and the depth that it adds. But I mean, if you can blend the two and do it well, like more power to you.
That's awesome. So how can brands identify and address specific pain points in their content to really help them create stronger emotional connection with their potential customers? Because we know that emotion drives a lot of action on the e-commerce side. So like how do they go about that? Because anyone can just go create a piece of content. How do you really get that hook and that emotion in there?
Without a doubt, testimonials, reviews, throw those into there. So like if you're, promoting a product, or if it's like say it's like type A versus type B or something like that, try to throw in some actual reviews from people who have bought it. And if you can't say you're not the best copywriter, you don't have the best like conversion focused piece of content to add in like paragraph 1, let paragraph 2 be a review from someone who actually bought it and loved it and said like, hey, here's why it worked well for me. Like I use it for this and it sucks because this was what my life was like before. And now it's here how it's better. Like there's nothing that works better than that as someone who's actually bought the product, has proof of it, came back to leave a review on it, and then says like, here's how great my life has changed because of it. So I think that there's really a need to lean more into your circle of recent customers. Like you were saying with those TED, like that's a great idea. Reach out to them, ask like they're searching for. At that same time, if they're happy with the product, get that review, upload it as a picture, like done deal. Like, why wouldn't you just tap into that as much as possible?
Yeah. I think one of my favorite review platforms on the e-commerce side these days is Okendo, because customers can actually, we send out the email asking for a customer review. They can click on it. They can leave a written review or they can record a video. And like being able to take those videos and embed those videos right into your content is very, very powerful. Yeah. What about for a brand that is, sells shoes, right? Shoes aren't really going to change a life. Whereas like maybe a skincare regimen, getting rid of acne or blemishes or stretch marks, that's more life-changing. How do you evoke emotion?
I'd argue and push back that shoes don't change a life. I think that you have to kind of think about like there's always going to be an umbrella of customers, or at least from like a psychological perspective. Some people just buy it out of basic need, like I need shoes so my feet don't are wet. Other people look at it as a cosmetic fashion lifestyle upgrade. And I think that depending on where your shoe brand is in that kind of wheel is really how you should tailor that content. So if you're selling Hoka's, like the running shoe, for example, like I love Hoka's. I probably will never not buy Hoka's for running. I'm a runner. So like that whole entire lifestyle encompasses me within that product. But if I'm looking at some insert any other brand that's not like that, I would touch on more like, hey, does the job, it's durable. Like there's always going to be attributes that you can lean into depending on who you're selling it to and how you're speaking and relaying that messaging. I think it really just depends on, like not to beat a dead horse, but like how well do you know your customer? What do they actually preference here? Like how do they think about the product? And the more you can kind of like immerse yourself in their point of view, it just makes the content that much stronger. But there's always a way.
That makes sense. All right. You got me there. I retract that question.
There's probably a product though out there that's probably not as black and white.
Not as life-changing.
Maybe. But I have to say on that topic, Colgate's blog is crushing. Like if you ever gone down a rabbit hole there, but look at their Hrefs. It's crazy.
I haven't. I'll have to dig into that. That's cool. Talk to me about storytelling. We hear, we both spend a fair amount of time on LinkedIn, right? I mean, a day doesn't go by when I don't see a post about storytelling. So how does that play into like really building content that converts?
Super hot take. I don't think it matters as much as people say it does.
I don't either.
Okay, I'm glad. There we go. I said it. Yeah, everyone's so like willing to die on that hill, and I've seen a lot of success without killer storytelling.
Right.
I think that if you are a visual media company and you're creating ads, or like I have a friend of mine on LinkedIn who they do like really high end, like 60-second ads, like 100% that is your story, like hook everything. If you're writing an article, especially content, and it's like a versus guide or like some sort of piece of content that's strictly informational, I'm there on a to-do list mental mindset. Like search, acquire information, make decision, buy. That does not require actually counter opposite. Like I always tell people, I don't care about your grandma's race, like 600-year-old recipe on how to bake this cake. Like give me the 6 ingredients I need and give me the 10 steps in under 10 seconds or else I'm out. Like, no, storytelling has a time and place, but it's not a blanket approach to content.
I like it. Good. Well, I'm glad I'm not the only one out there who kind of sees through that.
I was kind of nervous. I was wondering what you're going to say. People are always like, it can go one or two ways.
And maybe it's just because I'm a bad storyteller. I don't know.
I'm just bad at marketing. I'm bad at SEO. I'm bad at storytelling. So let them come for me.
It's funny. So let's dive into like more of a granular view, right? And when we look at e-commerce websites, I mean, the biggest point of conversion is going to be the product description page, right? And I feel like that is where most brands spend the least amount of time, right? They write, a 2-paragraph description. Maybe they've got some product reviews on the page. It's not great. So what are some best practices that you've seen to help really make those pages impactful and encourage conversions?
I'd say above the fold, less is more when it comes to text versus imagery. I think that a picture is worth 1,000 words. Like I'd rather have 10 images in a video than 1,000 words of content in one image. I think that people need to be able to feel it. They need to be able to envision themselves using the product. They want to see how it works. Like, how does it look scale wise? Is it the size of a pen? Is it the size of a Mack truck? Like that whole entire process of acquiring information that we do as humans in milliseconds is way more valuable than the bullet points of length times width times height. And here's how it's machine washable. Like I can look at the tag. I don't care. I would say like whatever is above the fold, like the psychology of the user experience and how that looks in design, that's another thing that people don't consider. Like even from blogs, for example, like if your featured image is 90% above the fold, like take it down. Same thing with a product on an e-commerce site. Like if your text is 75% of the page, like switch those two things around. The next thing there is I would say is like, what is the scroll psychology, or like what I would consider like the flow of the page. So like if I'm looking at image plus text, the next thing that would make sense from like a funnel perspective should be some sort of like review or testimonial. I also am not a huge fan of reviews that require clicks, or to see reviews that require clicks. It's like
just load
anything that requires an extra action from the visitor is pretty much diminishing your likelihood of success. So like if someone's going to scroll and even like 1 inch on the page, they should be able to see what that next piece of content is. And it should probably be something of pretty high value. So like reviews, the customer using it, maybe even like a team video of like your product tester or something, how it works in action. And then kind of like feed into any of the standard stuff, maybe FAQs, et cetera, et cetera. But I go strictly like bottom, and then go mid, top, and kind of like do like an hourglass approach where the bottom of the page is probably less important to the seller. So you have FAQs. It's probably good for internal linking. It's going to be good for your category connections, related products, all the other stuff. But whatever's moving the needle, make sure that's like immediately at the top.
Yeah, I like that. I like that you bring up visuals first and how you need to put, more importance on that versus the copy. I wonder how many people actually go through and read product descriptions and copy. I had a strange experience yesterday with one of my e-commerce brands. I spent a lot of time doing visuals, spent a lot of time doing product installation videos. And this particular product had been updated since I did the installation video. This customer reached out and said, my order is not right. You didn't include this. And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? Right here in the first sentence of the product description, it fully describes what this product is. Well, I watched your installation video and that's what got me to buy the product. And I'm like, holy smokes. Like, visuals are so powerful. It doesn't matter if I'm like, that's an installation video. It's not even a product picture. It's not a product video. Like, what are we doing here? So I'm glad that you went there. And I think that it's super important to invest time and money into getting that piece right. And then you can work the content around that.
Well, I mean, even too, like, I always think back to the evolution of Amazon listings, I guess. If you look at like how quickly once any one seller finds something that does 1% better, every single person has it. So for example, like, there's no reason you can't have an image that has feature like call outs, or it has bullet points in it. Like, use your text in image, but people are way more, especially with like how technology is just an extension of our hand now. Like, we're going to swipe that image and read whatever's in that image before we scroll and look at the text. So, and I think that, like, to your point, text is so easily blurred between, like, is the line height spaced well? Are you using bold? Are people like dumbing it down by using emojis, which I don't agree with either. But like, there's so many counterparts that can turn a good written piece of content into a dumpster fire of a text box. But then again, like, is that bullet point going to sway the customer? Probably not. It's probably going to like distort their experience overall. So like, I'd rather have a clean and clear copy section with imagery that speaks the same information, but people can digest it differently.
I like that. Cool. So how do you see brands and just other businesses in general measuring the effectiveness of their content? Like, are there any KPIs or indicators that say, hey, this content needs to be improved, or, we need to work on XYZ? Like, how do you measure that?
Yeah. So the main things that we look at are going to be the organic rankings. Obviously, it's third-party tools from Ahrefs. Some people use SEMrush. And just kind of seeing like, what is how is it tracking any given week or month? Clicks and impressions are always going to be kind of the poster child for SEO, and making sure what's your click-through rate based on both of those combined. And then sessions, time on page as well is important. Like, if, people are always really worried about that, and I think they should, for a good reason. If people's on there for 2 seconds and they leave, like,
that's a problem.
Look at that content. I also, like, another hot take is people really are super up in arms about bounce rate. I don't think it's that big a deal. I think it depends on the site, and it depends on the brand. But like, affiliate days taught me that bounce rates don't care, because people are there for one goal and one product only, and they're not going to look at anything else. So that's one thing I would say. And then the other thing is like how granular you want to get with the event tracking within your piece of content. So whether you have custom CTAs or newsletters or whatever that KPI is specific to your business goal metric, is like, that's up to you. So
that's cool. What are some of the common mistakes that you're seeing that brands are making with their content?
Lack of user experience and just a disregard for everything design user experience wise.
Whoa, we can go down a rabbit hole there. Maybe dive just a little bit deeper.
Oh my gosh. Jeez. There's nothing more frustrating than trying to relay the importance of having a really, really pretty looking blog in
Yeah.
2024, almost 2025.
Yeah.
It should feel clean. It should be smooth. Um, Mobile has to be dialed in, like all these, like,
Yep.
yeah, no duh basics. But if you take a look at even like one step further, looking at your EAT metrics and making sure that those are important. I mean, Google yesterday announced that their November update is now in fact for the next 2
Like
weeks. So
clockwork, 2 weeks before Black Friday. Thanks, guys.
everyone strap in. Yeah. So, I mean, like, if you don't have an author persona in your blog, like, especially with the world of AI, like it should link, like ours, for example, it's my face. I don't write every piece of content, but at least I have a face to the blog.
Yep.
And my bio has a direct link to my LinkedIn with the same exact picture that matches that. Like,
Yeah.
it's not rocket science, but from your customer's point of view, they should know that it's not an AI piece of content. And if it is, probably add a disclaimer at the top. What was added, like what's AI? I think it just goes back to the transparency thing. Like, people want to be able to know that this brand actually has humans behind it, not just a AI lever that dictates all action. Like, come on.
Yeah, I like those. Those are some great recommendations. Looking forward, I mean, we're 6 weeks-ish away from 2025. We have seen some of the biggest shifts in search engine results pages that we've seen, in the last 5 years, especially in e-commerce. Seeing what Google's done with search results, going to category pages, PDP pages, trying to keep people on the SERP longer, AI results overview, all sorts of knowledge panels. Like, what's the future of content? Where do you see us going next year?
I wish I had a crystal ball because my job would be way easier.
What are your hot take? Hot take is what you're calling it. What's your hot take?
Yeah, I think that the difference being is that, like, e-commerce is going to see the biggest shift because I always think back into, like, same thing as, like, one of my, like, things that I nerd out on is, like, putting myself into the shoes of whatever the operator is that I'm in their playground. So, like, if I'm looking at Google, everyone's like, SEO's dead, AI is taking over. And it's like, how do you think Google makes money? Right. They make money through ads. And where do you think those ads are shown? They're not going to kill SEO, because if they did, it'd kill the company.
Yep.
But that said, from that same mindset, how does Google make money? PPC, e-commerce, things that actually have an immediate reaction to people spending money. So from that sort of perspective, I think that Google has an incentive to figure out how to dial in e-commerce. And, like, they've massively updated the e-commerce shopping page already. Sure. And, like, as a consumer, that's sweet. Like, that helps me a lot. I think that's awesome. I think there's a long road ahead until they really figure out the content side of things. Like, the AI overviews suck. They really are losing a lot of trust. I was actually just talking to a friend of mine last week, and it kind of was a funny revelation we had. But the fact that Google is this entity that billions of people use, and they are kind of the testing ground of integrating AI into mass adoption for everyone else.
Right.
And if they mess it up, AI inherently kind of gets this disgusting taste in everyone's mouth, regardless of whether you like it or not. Yeah. So it's really weird because Google always has an incentive to show quality content as quickly as possible. But from, like, what we do with blogs and all sort of stuff, like, I was telling this to a new client we had, it's like, we have one client in, like, the mergers and acquisition space. Yeah. Like, there's no way that Google is going to show an AI snippet of how to value your business using EBITDA valuations. Like, because you give the formula, but
they'll show it and they're going to mess it up.
But someone who's actually in that mindset is going to want to read through the research of how to do all that sort of stuff. So, I mean, and even, like, the topical authority of ranking your e-commerce products, if you want to tie it back to that, like, no one's ever going to complain about having better rankings organically on their site. So you better figure out how to get your SEO dialed in. Like, I don't know, long-winded answer to your question, but I would say that I don't know, and I'm excited to see how it evolves.
I'm excited. I'm a little nervous. I think I posted, it was either this morning or I don't even know, because I queue them up a couple of days in advance. But on the e-commerce side, I wonder if SEO is going to become more of a brand building kind of thing.
100%.
Right?
More topical.
More topical, as people are researching and Google's trying with all of their might to keep people on the SERP? Is it going to be more important to try to get your brand name out there and into the consideration set so that when they are ready to buy, you can capture the click? You can, drive more direct traffic if people remember your brand name and whatnot. And so it's going to be interesting. I don't want to say SEO is dead, because it's not, and I don't believe it will ever be dead. But I think that we're going to see some pretty big changes next year.
Yeah, and I think the important part that kind of came to mind when you were saying that, just to kind of piggyback off of it, is that people often blur the importance of unique visits versus returning visits. So the importance of showing your brand in the SERP and getting that visibility and reinforcing the brand and everything that it has behind it is a stepping stone to action point 2 through 10. So even though they're not on that page buying immediately, same thing with blogs. Like, it's hard to sell a high ticket offer through their first visit of that blog. And that's why we suggest newsletters, lead magnets for their next visit, like everything you can do to kind of embody that next visit and turn them into the ecosystem of your brand.
And then move them through the buyer journey.
Exactly.
I like it.
Come on. Simple.
Cool. It's simple. It's so simple. I love it. Well, cool, man. I think that's a great stopping point. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah,
appreciate it. CEOs are busy people. And so I know you took some time out of your schedule to be with us today. And I really, really loved our conversation.
Likewise.
So for our listeners, I know that you've probably, taken away a lot today. My hope is, as always, that you've got 2 or 3 action items that you can take and you can carve some time out and start executing over the next couple of weeks to be able to set yourself up for more success in 2025. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Take care.